Welcome to Unbroken with Yay. Pull up a seat and get ready for some real talk, raw healing, and a reminder that no matter what you've been through, you are still standing. You've got this. Oh, today we are talking mum guilt, and oh my God, it is real, and it is stressful, and man, I felt it from the second they were born in so many different ways, and you spend so much time trying to be the perfect parent and not step a foot wrong, and guess what? There's no such thing as a perfect parent. So that's a relief, but let me go through all the different types of mum guilt and how we can help ourselves if you were worrying about working too much, not working enough, not making enough money, having your kids caught in the crossfire of a divorce, them telling you they don't want to go to dad's house and crying their eyes out. If that resonates with you, that's exactly what we're covering in today's episode. So please join me. So let's go back in time to when these kids were brand new, and I was in the delivery room. I know that umbilical cord did get cut, but I sure as hell didn't feel like it did because I just had to be with that kid all the time. I couldn't let them out of my sight. I had to have eyes on them. I had to feed them. I had to change them. I had to do everything. I wanted to sleep with them. I just, you spend all this time trying to be the perfect parent, which doesn't exist, and you work that out the hard way. And even going to the supermarket, I used to even struggle to go to the supermarket alone because I would worry. What if I got in a car accident between my house and the supermarket and I died? What if how would this kid live without me? How could he possibly live a day on this planet without me? And you just feel so bad everything you do. You feel bad if you do anything for yourself. I remember when I had my third, so I've got 3 kids. I had 3 kids within 4 years, right? So I had them really close together. And the youngest came and my girlfriend was like, I'm going away for the weekend. Why don't you go and stay at my apartment and just have a break for the weekend? Leave the kids with dad or grandma or someone. Do you think I could take her up on that offer? The mum guilt weighed so heavy. I said no. Oh, I just couldn't. That imaginary, that invisible umbilical cord was so strong, I just couldn't do it. And it's actually not guilt. That feeling is actually love. Like you just love these little people so much. I think anybody that's not an actual parent can't understand that level of love. I mean, maybe people feel it with their animals. I don't know, but it's intense. And so that type of guilt, man, it starts the second these kids are born. And then the guilt gets heavier and it gets harder and you get meaner to yourself. Because then if you're sitting in this place now where you're separated and you're telling your kids you're getting a divorce and that they're going to have 2 homes, and the weight of feeling so terrible that you are tearing their life apart. And we really need to try and stop that perspective. Yes, there's going to be change. Yep, there's absolutely going to be change. But one of the things I did was sat them down and was like, yep, there's going to be change, and we love you, and we both love you, and we're both going to see you, and you're going to have a bed at every house, and blah, blah, blah. That side of it we did. But the other side of it was normalizing it. And we sat there and I said, well, why don't you have a think about all the people in your class at school that get to have 2 homes? And why don't you go ask all of those, talk to your little friends? Because I was like, I bet some of them have 2 birthdays. I bet some of them get double presents at Christmas. I bet some of them can tell you all the cool stuff about having 2 homes. And they did. And they started to see all the positives of it, particularly in materialistic things with kids. Oh, well, I get to have a second set of Christmas presents. They thought that was really great. They thought it was great that they got to have 2 Christmases in one day. It was changing that guilt and that perspective and really getting on the same team of, this is really good. This is actually, instead of having one house that had been bitter, cool, now you get 2 happy houses. Who doesn't want 2 happy houses instead of one really unhappy, miserable house? So I was able to redirect that guilt as soon as I was able to be honest with my kids and actually get them on board. Because I think a lot of the guilt that we feel of as mums is silent. It's silent and it's secretive, and there's so much shame in going through a divorce, and depending on the circumstances of why that divorce is happening. But if you just focus on the basics, particularly from a child's perspective, it made it a lot easier. It was like, you're still going to have two houses and they're both going to be full of love. You got love everywhere you go. You've actually got even more love because now you've got extended family, and now you've got stepmums and stepsisters, and it's just more love to go around. So that's how I proceeded to do that. The heavier type of guilt that you may feel is when adult stuff creeps in. And I'm talking about when kids come home and they're talking about adult issues. And for whatever reason, they've been placed in this awful tug of war. Usually when it's custody issues, it may be triggered by financial issues, but they're adult issues. And they're between parents or families. But they've got nothing to do with these poor little innocent children. So if you are in the position, you'll also feel the guilt of when your child may come up to you and say, they might say things like, Daddy said that you stole all his money so that you could be in this house now. Or Daddy said you won't let us see him, when potentially there's a reason for that, or it's actually his choice. Daddy says this and that and the other, or even grandma or people externally. That feels awful. Being placed in that position where you're looking at your children and you know that they are essentially being used within a tug of war. They are being used as a pawn, as a scapegoat in order to punish you or send messages, is a really horrific feeling. And not only will you feel guilt about them being placed in that position, but you're likely to feel a lot of rage. A lot of rage. So you don't want to retaliate in front of them. You don't want to retaliate to them, and you got to fight that natural instinct to defend yourself, because there is no point in talking about adult issues with children. So what I tended to do was I would respond, which is my advice to you, and say, you know what, that just sounds like adult stuff. That sounds like a bit of adult talk, and you don't need to worry about that. My job is to love you, and I am doing that, and your job is just to be a kid and have fun. And you're doing it, so we're both doing our jobs, and then we would high five. And I would completely shut that conversation down. I am not having an adult conversation with a child, particularly regarding custody or divorce parameters. So you want to really nicely, while holding in all your emotions, shut that down. Because it's just not appropriate, and we really care about our child's well-being, and we also can't control what other people do or say in front of them. There's only so much shielding we can do, but if we're not in the room when those things happen, we have to just kindly redirect when they get home so that it doesn't become an issue that they fixate on. And then, of course, there is work guilt. So I am a firm believer in the saying, you can have it all, you just can't have it all at the same time. And 100%, absolutely true. You can have everything you want, but chances are you won't be able to have it at the same time, and something has to give. So since I've been a single parent, I've done quite a bit of contract work. So I'll work for periods of time full time, and then I might take a break. And then I'll work for periods of full time, and then I'll take a break. And at my house, we call that mummy time versus money time. So I sit down and I will have a conversation with my kids. I'm very honest and I'm very open and transparent, but I really talk in layman's terms so that they can understand. And I'll say, right, mummy's contract is ending. I'm not going to be working at wherever anymore. So there's a trade-off there, and this is the trade-off. You either get to have more mummy time, which means I don't work, right? Which means I can do every pickup, I can do every drop off, I can go to interschool sport, I can come on excursions, I can watch you at assembly do a performance, I can help out at the school canteen, I can have your little mates over after school for afternoon tea. But that means we don't have as much money in the bank because I'm not working. Or we can have money, but mummy, there's not as much time with mummy because mummy has to work in order to make the money. So that means before and after school care, but I can take you out on weekends and I can buy you things and I can take you to places like play centers. So recently, I've just finished the contract. I'm working on this business. I'm broken with Yay, but it's not generating a large amount of money yet. So my kids know this is a mummy time of life. So therefore they know we have less money coming in, as I'm not an employee at the moment for anyone. And therefore I'll pull up the laptop and go, great. So we can do activities on the weekend, but we won't be doing anything that I have to pay for. So we won't be going out to restaurants or play centers. But how about you guys all look up a park, a skate park, a playground, or a library anywhere in Melbourne, and I'm happy to drive there. And so they know that there are activities we can do that are free of charge and that they can take advantage of those when mummy has the time. And when mummy's working and we have money, we can't drive as far, we can't do all those types of things. So it's all about getting them involved and just knowing the difference. It's not an emotional thing. For your information, every single one of my kids every time has said they prefer mummy time over money time. But that's a personal thing. We've all got bills to pay. We've got rent, we've got mortgages. You've got to do what suits you, but taking the guilt out of that. Because every time I would go to work, I would feel bad that I wasn't with my kids and that I missed them getting accolades, that I missed all the appointments and excursions and the soccer training. That always made me feel terrible, but I had to work. But then of course the flip side is now that I'm physically available, I feel a lot of guilt about not being able to purchase them anything expensive. You know, they wanted to upgrade their bikes. I was like, I just can't afford to do that. You just can't, it's just not happening. You know, maybe next Christmas. So that is the trade-off, and that is how I find it easiest to manage the mum guilt in that work versus non-work situation. Which brings me to the last type of mum guilt. Now this guilt you will get from your kids, from them directly, and they will guilt you. They are lovely little people, but they have the most insane, impressive instinct to manipulate, to get what they want. So they will manipulate you by crying when it's drop-off time and say they don't want to go to their dad. So then you feel bad. And all you could think is, oh my God, I just want a break. I just want to sit here in silence. You know, I just don't want to, you know, I need this day. I need this one overnight or whatever it may be. So then you're fighting with this kid to get in the car with their own dad who's happy to see them. And you feel terrible. They'll do it all the time. They'll guilt you and say, oh, dad always gives us dessert, especially when we eat our vegetables. And then you feel bad because you're like, oh God, am I the mean mum and I never let these kids have sugar and I've gone too far left? And, you know, they really pull on your heartstrings. Let me give you a word of advice. Even if you were still with your ex, they would try to do that. They do it all the time. It's inbuilt, it's who they are, and it's how they're trying to get the best out of their little lives. If they can manipulate you into giving them a box of cookies and then get straight in the car with dad and say, we didn't eat any cookies today, mum never gave us any. And then they'll try and get some out of him. That's just how they're wired. They're hardwired that way. So drop that guilt. It's the same as anybody that's ever had their kids in daycare. The daycare teachers will tell you, you walk out and these kids are crying, Mommy, I love you, I can't go, please come back. And you feel terrible. You might even go and sit in your car crying. And then guess what? If you ever have the option to sneak back in and see them, oh, they're playing. They got like 10 little friends, they're eating all the food, they're playing on all the stuff, they're having a great old time. They'll still come home that night and be like, no one played with me, I didn't eat any food. And they do, they just create so much guilt. So please try not to buy into that. So as always, I have a worksheet on the website, which is www.unbreakingwithyay.com.au, and it is the guilt trip. It is looking at all the ways that you feel guilt as a mum and how to relieve some of those, and change your perspective, because guilt is the most useless emotion. Like, it serves no purpose. But if you're able to identify and go, okay, it's actually love that I'm feeling, it's not, it is guilt, but the guilt is coming from love. And identifying, okay, I love them so much and I'm trying to protect them and I'm trying to do my best, but what is my capacity in order to do that? Because we really don't want to get to the stage of burnout. And that is when you just run yourself ragged trying to please everybody else while destroying your sense of self. So we don't want to do that. We want to be able to have peace. And we also want to be able to tell these kids no sometimes, and just have some honest chats, but frame the perspective in a really positive light and get them involved in, free activities or whatever it is when you're talking about the fact that, you can't afford to go to expensive places. That's fine. So you've got this. I've got this. You've got this. We can do it. We're in it together. Let's hang that mum guilt. Let's leave it at the door and walk in, have a relax and enjoy our time together. So all the best. Good luck. Do not be mean to yourself and do not hold too much of that mum guilt.